City of Falls Church on April 22nd, 2013. If you'd please rise and pledge the allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, and welcome again. Mr. Bishop, if you would read the roll.
Ms. Berry.
Here.
Mr. Duncan.
Here.
Mr. Kalin.
Here.
Mr. Pepe.
Here.
Mr. Snyder.
Here.
Mr. Tarter.
Here.
Mayor Baruch.
Here.
Thank you, Council.
If I can get a motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
If I can get a second. That's Vice Mayor Snyder on the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The meeting agenda is adopted. We have 4 proclamations this evening. I've asked my fellow council members to read them. The first proclamation is Earth Day. Ms. Berry, if you'd read that proclamation.
Whereas the global community now faces extraordinary challenges such as global health issues, food and water shortages, and economic struggles, and whereas all people, regardless of race, gender, income, or geography, have a moral right to a healthy, sustainable environment with economic growth, and whereas it is understood that the citizens of the global community must step forward and take action to create a green economy to combat the aforementioned global challenges, and whereas a green economy can be achieved on the individual level through educational efforts, public policy, and consumer activism campaigns, and whereas it is necessary to broaden and diversify this global movement to achieve maximum success.
Thank you. I therefore, I, Nader Baruch, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, hereby do proclaim the month of May 2013.
No.
I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong proclamation. Now, I therefore, Nader Baruch, the Mayor of the City of Falls Church, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2013 as Earth Day in the City of Falls Church and encourage residents, businesses, and institutions to use Earth Day to celebrate the Earth and commit to building a sustainable and green economy. Mr. Shields, who's receiving this? Do we?
Mr. Shields. Yay, you.
Thanks, Wyatt.
Do we get a photograph?
A photo with Wyatt.
That's right. We know what you look like.
All right, the next proclamation that we have is the Relay for Life. Mr. Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor Brigg, for allowing me to read this, which I do in honor of my parents, who at age 88 and 89 are both long-term cancer survivors. Whereas this year, the American Cancer Society will celebrate 28 years of Relay for Life, an overnight celebration of life dedicated to current and former cancer patients, their families and friends. And whereas on the weekend of June 1 and 2, Falls Church will hold its 6th annual Relay for Life, involving hundreds of volunteers and dozens of cancer survivors who will become part of this community celebration created by dozens of teams camping out, enjoying entertainment, participating in the beautiful luminary candlelighting ceremony to honor and remember those who have battled cancer. And whereas cancer survivors from the Falls Church community will come together for the Survivors Victory Lap to open the Relay for Life, joining more than 500,000 cancer survivors nationwide to participate in Relay for Life events representing hope for someone newly diagnosed with cancer. And whereas businesses, social organizations, civic groups, churches, and schools from the Falls Church community will join more than 3 million Americans who participate in over 5,000 Relay for Life events nationwide, who will raise more than $408 million for the American Cancer Society. And whereas the Falls Church Relay for Life will raise funds to fight cancer while raising awareness about cancer prevention and the programs and services offered by the American Cancer Society. And whereas the American Cancer Society is the largest voluntary health organization in the world whose mission is to eliminate cancer as a major health problem by preventing cancer, saving lives through early detection, and reducing suffering from cancer through research, education, advocacy, and community service.
Now, therefore, I, Nader Baruch, the Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, and members of the City Council of Falls Church, do hereby proclaim the week of April 22nd through April 27th as Relay for Life Week in the City of Falls Church and urge all of our citizens to participate in this year's Relay for Life of Falls Church. Mr. Shields, do you know who's receiving this proclamation? Please come forward. Thank you. If you have any comments. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so very much for having us. We're really excited for this year's Relay for Life event, and just to say that the city is going to continue to support and have their residents come out and have this wonderful celebration of life, and also to remember cancer survivors. We're really appreciative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you join council for a quick photo. Yeah, thank you very much.
If you want to take a proclamation.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Try two. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next proclamation that we have is Building Safety Month. Mr. Snyder?
Thank you. Whereas building code officials address issues regarding safety, energy efficiency, and the sustainability of our buildings, assuring us that our structures are safe and sound, and whereas public code, building code officials, architects, engineers, builders, and others work year-round to ensure safe buildings, and whereas these dedicated professionals develop codes to protect our citizens in the buildings where they live, work, and play, and whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by Falls Church Building Safety, the International Code Council, and the Virginia Building Code Officials Association, and whereas Code Officials Keep You Safe is the theme for Building Safety Month 2013, encourages appropriate steps everyone can take to ensure our buildings are safe and sustainable, and recognizes that countless lives have been saved by the implementation of safety codes, a goal that is obtainable. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, Americans are asked to consider projects to improve building safety and sustainability at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided by local and state building departments and federal agencies in protecting lives and property.
Now therefore, I, Nader Baruch, the Mayor of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2013 as Building Safety Month in the city of Falls Church. Mr.
Thank you.
Frazier.
Thank you, Mayor, and Mr. Snyder and Council.
Photo up.
Thanks, Doug.
That's very worked out.
There you go. Yep.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. And one more. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Fake out. Ready? 1,
It's even better.
2, 3. Perfect.
Thanks.
you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Doug.
Doug, I think you had presentations on the awards?
Yeah, I'm very happy tonight to recognize two builders we have here in the city in two houses. The first one is 601 North Highland Avenue. Andrew Moore is here tonight with Arlington Designer Homes. And this house, Paul and Martha Kolodzi and Andrew designed and built this house at 601 North Highland Avenue. It is a NAHB Gold. It achieved the NAHB Gold, National Association for Home Builders Gold Award, Gold certification. We also have tonight Adam Bean with Greenbuilt Homes, and he achieved the NAHB Silver certification for 119 North Virginia Avenue, over across from the library. So, do you all have the awards up there?
I've got him here.
Okay, great. Anyway, I think it's great in the city that we have these two builders that have the knowledge and the ability to actually achieve these certifications. You want to come
If you want to come up, join me.
And while they're going up to the dais, I also want to recognize that Doug Frazier has just recently gotten his LEED certification and is very well qualified to administer this program, and congratulations on that accreditation.
Thanks very much, Wyatt.
Ready, 1, 2, 3. And one more, 1, 2, 3. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Congratulations, all of you.
Congratulations. Thank you. And the final proclamation that we have this evening is the Public Safety Recognition Week. Mr. Pepe.
Public service.
I'm sorry, Public Service Recognition Week.
See,
Mr. Pepe.
see the teamwork up here? Everybody gets to read something tonight. Plus, we get to stand up and sit down a lot to get our work out before we get into the meet. This is a good one, given that tonight's budget night. Whereas since 1985, the President and Congress have designated the first week of May as Public Service Recognition Week for federal, state, county, and city employees. And whereas every day of the year and at all hours of the day and night, city employees provide critically important services to citizens of the City of Falls Church and the region. And whereas the City Council and Mayor ask the public to join them in recognizing and celebrating the city's dedicated employees for their work in providing essential services to the public, including promoting safety, public safety with the highest standards of professional law enforcement, providing a world-class public education for our children, hosting and promoting wonderful special events, enriching our lives with great books and library services, maintaining our streets and sidewalks, providing vital water and sanitary sewer services, developing recreation programs for all ages, caring for the elderly and persons in need, promoting well-planned, high-quality development, caring for our trees, and providing the Falls Church style of personal and responsive customer service at all times. And whereas we ask more of our city employees with each year, and city employees always go the extra mile to meet the needs of Falls Church citizens.
Whereas I, Nader Baruch, the mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim the week of May 5th through 11/2013 as Public Service Recognition Week, and thank all city employees for their contribution during this past year, which helped make the City of Falls Church such a great place to live, work, and play. Mr. Shields, are you accepting this on behalf of staff?
I'd be happy to, and Superintendent Tony Jones, do you want to come up as well?
Council, join me. Thanks, Ryan. All right. Thanks, Dr.
Here we are.
All right, we'll do 2. Ready, 1, 2, 3. Ready, 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the agenda is oath for our new boards and commission members. Are there any members of the public here to be sworn in? Okay, thank you. We are on to receipt of public comments. And what I'm happy to do now, I propose that we hold the comments that are on the budget ordinances until we get there. There are a couple items that I've got speaker slips for. I'm happy to take those comments that are not on the budget at this point, given that I think we're going to have a full plate on the budget items. I'm happy to take comments on the other items now, or when they come up. Not seeing any, I'll hold those comments until we get to those agenda items. Ms. Bishop, if you'd summarize the written comments we received.
Council, since the last council meeting, you have received many emails, and there were too many to even read all the names, but I'll give you the short, down and dirty. For the number of emails, messages you received on supporting the school budget request. Since April the 8th, you received 195 communications. With regard to people who wanted the tax increase to be flat or very minimal, you received 10 communications. On stormwater, you received messages from 2 people who support the stormwater utility and 2 people who oppose the stormwater utility.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle.
The summary list is up on Granicus if anyone cares to look at names.
Great. Thank you very much. And council members, any requests or comments at this point? Okay, we are on to report of the city manager to council. Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor Baruch, members of the council. Just 3 things to report. First, I would like to note, and I'm sure there are some council members who might wanted to note this as well tonight, but on Saturday night, the Chamber of Commerce awarded a Falls Church employee, Tom Clinton, with its highest award, the Pillar of the Community Award. And I think that this is the first time that I'm aware of that a current city employee was provided this recognition and honor by the Chamber of Commerce. So I wanted to recognize Tom, and as a colleague, congratulate him on that recognition. From that happy news, I wanted to report that, as council is aware, city employee Wendy Block Sanford is leaving the city to take a job with the city of Fairfax. She will be greatly missed, and we'll have an event on Wednesday, the April 24th, to celebrate her service with the city. And that will be, and I'll send a notice out to council as to when that is. But I just wanted to note that she will be greatly missed as an employee with the city of Falls Church, and we wish her well as she pursues her career as the Director of Transportation for the city of Fairfax. It's an exciting job opportunity for her. And then lastly, I would just note that this coming Saturday is our recycling extravaganza at the property yard, and that will be from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. Again, that's Saturday, April 27th, and I'd like to also take it as an opportunity to brag on the city. We have every year increased our rate of recycling, and just saw the forms. They haven't been fully audited, but we're setting a new record in terms of our rate of recycling. And I will just say it's in the high 60s. Until that number is audited, we'll come back with more public relations on that. But it requires a great community effort to hit that high mark. We have been the highest in the state of Virginia in recent years, and hopefully we'll reclaim that title. The recycling extravaganza is part of that effort, so welcome everybody to bring their recyclables to the property yard on Saturday. And that's all I have to report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Councilmember, any questions for the city manager? We are on to business on the agenda. Council, what I propose that we do is have, I believe it's items 1 through 5, Mr. Shields, is that right, that are all related to the budget?
We could include the sewer rate ordinance in the 5 of the council wishes.
Okay, so that would be 1 through 5, right?
That would be 1 through 5, yes.
Okay, and all the subparts.
That's right.
So what I propose that we do is read those, open the discussion up for public comment, and then take council member motions and discussion at that point. Does that seem workable for everybody? All right, why don't we go ahead and do that? Ms. Bischoff, if you'd read those items, please. And again, that's all of 1 through 5, including the subparts.
All right, council, you had before you several different versions of TO 13-07, which is on second reading, which is the ordinance fixing and determining the budget of expenditures and revenues, appropriating funds for the fiscal year 2014, general fund, school operating fund, school community service fund, and school food service fund, water fund, sewer fund, and enterprise fund, and affordable housing fund. In that, you have option 2 before you, option 2B, option 3, option 4, and a new option that was not on your agenda, which is, I believe, original option 2. Is that correct, Mr.?
That is correct.
And then you also have TO 13-09, again on second reading. Ordinance to create Article 7, Stormwater, under Chapter 42, Utilities of the Falls Church City Code to establish a stormwater utility. TO 13-08 on second reading is the ordinance fixing and determining the FY 2014, FY 2018 Capital Improvements Program budget and appropriating expenditure and revenue funds for the fiscal year 2014. TO 13-06 is the ordinance setting the rate of tax levy on real estate, personal property, machinery and tools, and all other property segregated by law for local taxation in the city of Falls Church, Virginia for the tax year 2013. And the last item is 2013, TO 13-05, ordinance to amend Chapter 42, Utilities, to revise the sewer rates and fees as of July 1st, 2013, also on second reading.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bichelle. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open all of these items up for public comment, and then come back to council for motions and discussion. So the first speaker slip that I have, and if I can ask the public, everybody will have up to 3 minutes. If you'd provide your name and your address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes. You'll hear a buzzer go off when your time is up. I just ask that everybody respect the time given the number of speakers that we have. And if there's duplicate comments and you agree with the speakers before you, you can simply acknowledge that as you will as well. The first speaker slip that I have is Mr. John Sandoz.
Thank you, council members. My name is John Sandoz. I reside at 308 North Virginia Avenue here in the city. I'm here to speak on behalf of fully funding the school budget and preferring option 2 of the ordinance that have been summarized. My background is as a retired naval officer. I've had the opportunity to serve more than 30 years, a number of those in command of forces. And I can't overemphasize enough the importance of developing, among other things, character and integrity, values that come largely through extracurricular activities. I realize we have an outstanding school, public school system here, but I think it is particularly important to fund the extracurricular activities that contribute to the growth of our young people. And regardless of whether you have children in the school system or not, the future of our fine city depends on many of these young people that will go on and then come back and serve as many as you have. So thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is Mr. Padilla, followed by Ms. Charlotte Highland.
My name is Sevi Padilla. I'm not a resident of the city, but I'm an employee of the Falls Church City Public Schools. Good evening. My name is Sevi Padilla. I'm Director of Facilities and Security for the Falls Church City Public Schools. I want to first start by saying thank you for all your hard work in preparing the fiscal year 14 budget. I know this has been a very difficult year for everyone involved. Last week I wrote to each of you detailing many major issues we're facing throughout the school division. While we have a significant amount of large unfunded capital items such as elevators, air conditioning units, roof replacements, and exterior doors and windows, we also have a significant amount of equally important unfunded small items. These items include torn stair treads, restroom stall partitions, classroom and building painting, electrical lighting repairs and replacements, carpeting and flooring replacements, cafeteria tables and chairs, and custodial equipment. Most of these items were cut before the superintendent presented her budget, and then when the budget came forward to City Council, we took another tough deduction with our custodial services. When TJ opens, we'll have an additional 22,000 square feet of floor space to clean and maintain. The current proposed budget does not fund an additional custodian, to cover the new square footage, although I did request it. It was cut by the school board during their tough budget deliberations. In fact, we're still down 2 custodians compared to where we were in 2007. We're doing more with less and have already cut our budgets to the core. We have a budget before you that would allow me to maintain our buildings, not in pristine fashion, but by very minimal standards. It also doesn't include desperately needed custodial equipment upgrades. Our staff does a remarkable job with what they have, but we are getting to a point where we won't be able to maintain or repair our current equipment of our buildings if our budget is cut once again. The lack of equipment will directly impact our ability to maintain the buildings to the level of expected by our staff, students, and the community. In closing, I ask that this council look beyond the politics of the current rhetoric and at the actual needs facing the schools by fully funding the fiscal year 14 budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is Ms. Charlotte Highland, followed by Dr. Tony Jones.
My name is Charlotte Highland, and I reside at 201 Buxton Road in Falls Church. Mayor Baruch, Vice Mayor Snyder, and members of Falls Church City Council. As Vice Chair of the School Board, I'm here tonight first to say thank you on behalf of the school board, staff, and students of Falls Church City Public Schools. Our school community is thankful and grateful that you have been available to listen carefully and thoughtfully to the challenges that our school system is facing, resulting from fast-paced student enrollment growth that has resulted in the number of students attending our schools to be at an all-time high. Thank you to Mayor Baruch, Vice Mayor Snyder, Council Members Pepe, Duncan, and Tarter for speaking publicly in support of either the full school request or a hybrid that is close to it. Basically, budget scenarios 2, 2B, or 3. We know how hard you all are working to come to a decision on this important matter. This year's school division budget request comes on the heels of several years of lower level funding, while at the same time we've been facing challenging enrollment growth. Since 2007, we have grown by 500 students, with 50% of that growth, or just over 200 children, coming during this school year and the last school year alone. To put that in some perspective, the 200 additional students added in the past 2 years would fill a school the size of Mount Daniel, and the 500 students added since 2007 would fill a school the size of Thomas Jefferson. This budget request from the school division puts teachers in our classrooms and helps us compensate our staff so that we can retain and recruit the very best for our children. We're not asking for class sizes that are unreasonable. We've set a target in our policy of no more than 24 students in grades 3 through 12 and no more than 22 students in grades K through 2. In the not-so-distant past, the goal for maximum class sizes in FCCPS was no more than 20 students per classroom. Over the past few years, we've increased class sizes, reduced materials and supplies, reduced administrative positions, reduced custodial staff, put off textbook replacements, put in place green practices to reduce utility usage and create efficiencies, and eliminated teaching and support positions. We've worked hard to do our part to help economize in our system in the face of budget shortfalls and economic difficulties. We've consolidated our services with the city for grounds, bus fleet maintenance, gas purchases, contractual legal expenses, and consolidated within our own system so people in leadership positions carry at least 2 departments. Again, thank you for understanding the challenges we are facing, for the long hours that you've spent working on the budget this year. I know I speak for my fellow school board members when I say that we, along with Dr. Jones and the FCCPS staff, have spent a lot of time meeting with and hearing from the public, and I know you all, along with Mr. Shields and city staff, have done so as well. We on the school board are very committed to keeping our school system one of the best in America. I believe that every single person in this room is here because we all care about the future, and the future is embodied by our children. Our children are the next city managers, mayors, engineers, doctors, teachers, and principals. They deserve our best effort to preserve the very institutions that help them prepare to carry forward the legacy of this great little city that we all love. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the school board.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is Dr. Tony Jones, followed by Mrs. Stephanie Oppenheimer.
Good evening, Tony Jones, School Superintendent. I also reside at 444 Broad. Mayor Baruch and members of City Council. First of all, I want to say thank you for the many hours that you've spent working on this budget. All of us acknowledge that the life of a public servant is not easy. This is only my 2nd year in FCCPS, and since my arrival,
we've added over 200 students to our school system. While we've been vigilant to let you know about the enrollment explosion, it's important that you understand that last year and this year have brought increasing demands on our system. From June of last summer to today, one school year, we've grown by 6.8% to a high today of 2,304 students. As you know, we don't get additional funding during the school year. Our classes are full, our budgets are depleted, and our staff and children need your support tonight to fully fund our requests to get us back on track. You've seen the data, you've seen the graphs and charts. All of our data points utilize FY7 to current to provide consistency and accuracy in comparisons. Lastly, there was a slideshow circulated today to council, school board, some members of the community, and even some of our staff. While I can't speak in great detail tonight, this did come at the 11th hour of the budgeting process, I can assure you that we will study it thoroughly. I do want to publicly state that from our viewpoint, there are several aspects that deem the data not accurate. Most notably, it is not based on current data. The report is primarily focused on special education, and the data in the report reflects at least 2 percentage points less than our actual enrollment of 14.5% of our population as of today. Our special education population is continuing to climb at an all-time fast pace. Again, we've grown by 6.8% since this time last year. I do want to note that according to the data you did receive today, that on page 11, I was thrilled that the report did concur what we've been saying about our staffing needs. It acknowledges that between 2008, right before the recession hit, and 2012, we had a decrease in our professional staff. How in the world did a professional staff decrease, according to what was circulated today, when we added all those precious children to our system? Because our staff, especially our teachers, have taken on more and more and more. We respectfully ask that you fully fund our budget, not for any other reason than the simple fact that this is not about politics. This is about our children and our future. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just ask that, just for purposes of decorum, I know that this is a highly charged issue for folks, that we can just keep going through the comments. The next speaker slip that I have is from Ms. Stephanie Oppenheimer, followed by Ms. Denise O'Vallon, I believe.
Good evening, Mayor Baruch and City Council, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Stephanie Oppenheimer, and I live at 610 North Oak Street. In 2008, my husband and I had a decision to make. We lived in Alexandria City, where our tax rate at the time was 0.845 cents per $100. We loved the city and its excellent amenities and services, but with our oldest son about to start kindergarten, there was a problem. Our neighborhood elementary school wasn't accredited, the middle school was on shaky ground, and the reputation of the high school was, at least at that time, Yale or jail. So we moved here to Falls Church for the same reason it seems a lot of people do, the schools. In our 5 years here, the schools have delivered, and we feel that we've been given a huge return on our investment. But they've also grown exponentially, and it's pretty simple math to know that more kids mean more expenses, particularly since we're several years into a widening funding gap. Teachers are also among our most important asset, yet let us compare our performance with Arlington, which is perhaps most like us in terms of community expectations and academic performance. They spend on average $2,000 more per student, and their average class sizes are smaller across the board. On average, they pay their teachers about $6,700 more than we do. But look a little bit harder, and you'll see that the disparity between teachers with master's degrees at the higher step levels is even greater. An Arlington teacher at the equivalent of Falls Church's Step 12 earns $9,281 more. Step 15 earns $13,632 more. In Alexandria, Step 15s earn $10,315 more. If you were a great teacher looking for a job, where would you go? So I'm standing here tonight to urge you, at least 4 of you and hopefully 5 of you, to fully fund the schools. By not funding them, you will chip away at their ability to provide the high-quality education that our city is known for, and you will degrade the economic engine that drives Falls Church. If the schools aren't great, why will people move here? On a much grander scale, it would be like taking Disney out of Orlando. You'd be left with a perfectly fine place to live, but one without a calling card. So without a driver to get people to move here, why will developers want to build here? Why will the Harris Teeters and the Hiltons of the world find this market attractive? What will drive investors to invest? And perhaps even more importantly, what is your plan B? If schools cease to be our anchor, what is your strategy for finding something else that will drive our growth so ably, as well as our fiscal health long term? Enrollment is skyrocketing, costs are rising, the funding gap has widened. The writing is on the wall, and the message says it's time to fully fund our schools so that they can remain superior. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is from Ms. Denise, I believe it's O'Neill.
Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Denise O'Neill. I am not a city resident. For the purpose of this discussion, I guess you could say I live at 601 South Oak Street. For the past 20 years, I've had the privilege of working as a speech pathologist for Thomas Jefferson Elementary School. I'd also like to tell you that I am the most apolitical person I know. I'm on the threshold of retirement, and in all the years I have worked for Falls Church City Schools, I have never asked to speak before either the school board or the city council until tonight. I ask you to consider these things as you listen to what I have to say, because they speak to the fact that my motives are sincere. In the past 20 years, I have listened to many budget discussions and debates. I have heard arguments for maintaining a competitive edge with surrounding communities and for maintaining our reputation as one of the premier school systems in this region, if not the entire country. I have heard people extol the positive impact that our school system has on the real estate values of homes in this city as they urged your support for school budgets in the past. Just today, I saw several graphs unfavorably comparing our school system to our neighboring districts as a means of urging city residents not to support this year's budget request. As I stand here tonight, I have to tell you that none of that matters in this budget discussion as far as I'm concerned. What does matter is one simple fact. Our student population has exploded, and we are struggling to meet the needs of the children that fill our hallways and our classrooms. If we want to make accurate comparisons in this discussion, how about we look at where we are now compared to where we used to be? As long as I have been on the staff at TJ, it has always been about the people, about preserving our close-knit school community, our parent-teacher partnerships, and our small classroom sizes, as we strive to provide a quality education for the children of this little city. As each year passes, it becomes more and more difficult to meet those expectations and to maintain those values in light of how our numbers have grown. When I first started here, there were 3 classrooms at each grade level. Next year, the projected number is 8 classrooms at every grade level, provided we want to keep our class sizes at a reasonable number. Not that long ago, there were 18 to 19 students on average in our classrooms at TJ. This year, there are 23 to 24 students in each class, which is about a 20% increase. Now, in some cases, a 20% increase is a good thing. Who wouldn't want a 20% increase in salary, in gas mileage, or in a carton of Ben & Jerry's ice cream? In other cases, a 20% increase can be a significant hardship in beltway traffic, in our waistlines, and in our classrooms. To those of you who claim that small class sizes don't matter, I say, you are wrong. A low student-to-teacher ratio is always a good thing, especially when you consider the diverse needs of the students in our classrooms. More to the point, it is something that has always been valued and preserved in this community, until now anyway, or so it seems. I'm sorry, but I'm going to ask you to let me finish. Thanks. Most of you are aware that TJ's enrollment recently hit the 500 student mark. What you may not know is the impact of that number on our programs at the current staffing level. For example, we have only 1 school counselor to serve the needs of all those students, and we are currently at the tipping point of compliance with state regulations. Once we go over 500 students, we will be out of compliance in terms of meeting state guidelines for counseling services at the elementary level. That is not fear-mongering, it is fact. Our assistant principal is only half-time, and our TAP teacher's current caseload is 160 students. Unfortunately, there is no current plan to expand TAP services at our school. However, within the current budget request, we have asked for a 0.2 increase in counseling services and that our assistant principal position be made full-time. When you consider that 5th grade is returning to TJ next year and that our student population will be well over 600 students, these staffing increases become even more essential. This is why they are included in the superintendent's current budget request. What will happen to them if the recommended $1.3 million cut goes into effect? There is one last question I would like to ask. To those of you who reintroduced the idea of the $1.3 million cut to the school's budget request, and to those of you who are in support of that cut, I ask, where have you been this past year? I can't imagine that it's been at Thomas Jefferson Elementary School, because if you had spent any time at TJ this school year, you would understand what I'm talking about in terms of our population explosion, you would recognize our pressing needs, and you would share our concerns. I thank you for the opportunity to speak before you tonight. Please do the right thing, put the children of this city first, and fully fund the superintendent's budget request.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have. I would just, again, I would, for the second time, just ask the public to please hold your applause. The next speaker slip that I have is Mr. Edward Salzberg, followed by Mr. Ken Thackeray, who's going to be speaking for Sue Thackeray.
Mr. Mayor and City Council members, I'm Ed Salzberg. I live at 1006 North Tuckahoe Street in Falls Church, and I was hoping to get up here and wax eloquently, but after Denise and Stephanie, I don't know if there's much more that I can say. I'm a 34-year resident of the City of Falls Church, and I just love this place. The attributes are wonderful. City services, I think, are really great. I can find little things to criticize all over the place. Please don't talk to my wife about me. But just a couple of extra points. We got here before we had kids. We had 2 kids going through the school system who were out, one handicapped, the easy one. And we're here after our kids have left. And before our kids were in the school, we really didn't know a whole lot of people. We really didn't even know we were in Falls Church. It was the school experience that really brought us into the community. And the real glue across this community is the schools. We have other attributes, but it really is the schools overall. I thought that Susan Carney made an excellent case for the increase in the school budget. Her point that we're at the same average cost per student that we were in 2007, that we've stripped the administrative costs out. So the only thing really left to cut are teachers, increase in class size, degrade the level of teacher competency that we bring into the system overall. At some point, this is not going to be an excellent school system anymore. We're going to be just riding on the fumes of that excellence. And at that point, the word is going to be out. And when that happens, and Falls Church is no longer that excellent place that's above others because the citizens and the city council take the time and put the money in and put the effort in to keep that standard here, then people are not going to want to move in here, just as Denise said. People are not going to come here because of the schools. They don't come here because of excellent trash collection. They come here because of excellent schools. So I just urge you to fully fund the budget, even though that budget is not the real budget that the school board would like because of the cuts over the past several years. We're just really starting to get ourselves back to neutral and really still not making the full investment that's really necessary. That may take a little bit of time, but I urge you at least to fully fund this budget this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is from Mr. Keith Thackeray.
Hi, I'm Keith Thackeray. I live at 412 Southwest Street. I'm here on behalf of my sister, Sue Thackeray, who lives at 102 West Rosemary Lane. Sue is a paraprofessional at Mount Daniel School, but she could not be here tonight, so she asked me to read her letter. To the esteemed members of the City Council, I am on the staff of the Falls Church City Schools, and I went through this school system as a student. My father and mother moved here in 1941, and my mom became PTA president not many years later. She has continued to be involved with the schools ever since. The schools were not in the best of shape when my parents moved here. Along with other concerned parents, my mom and dad decided to do something about the condition of the schools. As chairman of the charter committee, my father helped to make Falls Church a city so that there would be top-rated schools where they could send their children. They achieved this goal beyond anyone's dreams, and this is what has made our city so unique. In order to maintain an excellent school system, one that my parents and others worked so hard to start up, it takes money. I feel that if we don't stay competitive in our programs, teacher salaries, facilities, etc., our city, one of which I am proud to be a part, will become just like any other city. I ask that you consider what were the motivations to have Falls Church become a city, and what is necessary to keep Falls Church such a desirable place to raise a family. It's the superior schools. Thank you for your hard work on the budget. Sincerely, Sue Thackeray.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is Amanda Blanchard, followed by Mary Beth Kimron, I believe.
Good evening, council members. My name is Amanda Blanchard, and I am a Falls Church City Public School staff member. I come to you this evening wearing many, many hats, but I speak to you as a teacher. I was hired for that approximately 12 years ago, and I can tell you one thing. My classes keep getting bigger. I'll do everything I possibly can with the children that I have, but the more children I have, the harder it is to give them everything I have. So I urge you and thank you for everything that you've done, but urge you to fully fund our budget so that I can continue to provide them the best education possible. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is Mary Beth McKimron, I believe, followed by Ashton Kuchaman.
Good evening. My name is Mary Beth McKinnon, and I live at 119 West Westmoreland Road. And I'm here to request that you fully fund the schools and the budget from the school board. I have two children who are attending Falls Church City Schools. I have a 6th grader at MEH and a 4th grader at TJ, and they have been in the Falls Church City Schools since the beginning of their education, including preschool at a local area preschool here in the city. I bought and purchased my home in 1998, before I was engaged, before I was married, before I had children. My real estate agent saw the house and said, you have to buy it. You have to buy this house because these are the best schools that you will find. He had no idea that I was even thinking about having children, and yet he encouraged me to do it because he knew that that was something that needed to be done. And we've been thrilled with our decision to live here and with the education that our children have gotten, and also with the community and the neighbors that we have in our area. On Friday afternoon, I generated a petition to fully fund the school board request. It went out Friday evening, and as of 6:30 today, we had 275 signatures on that petition from residents of the city, from teachers. I submitted those to the clerk for your review, and I also submitted many of the comments that came with those petitions. After living in the city for 15 years, I've just noticed the unprecedented growth in our schools. One morning as I was driving, I think probably to Starbucks, I got stuck behind the bus at Pearson Square, and I noticed and counted at least 30 children getting on that bus. That is over one full classroom from one building. Ms. Berry and Mr. Kalin, I'd like to remind you something that you said in your campaign. It was on your website and part of your 5-year plan. You committed that within 30 days of joining City Council to propose measures to ensure that residential development within commercial zones does not add new students without paying for their long-term education costs. That is what we are asking you to do tonight. And I would like to also know what has been done to ensure that this need will be met. As a taxpayer in this city, I am making an investment in the future with our schools and our children. I look at housing prices in my neighborhood, and I look across the street, right across Lee Highway, and there's no comparison. Our real estate values have remained insulated from the recession, and I'd like you to think about why. Is it because we have such nice parks in our city? Maybe. Or because people can choose to walk to State Theater instead of drive to go to concerts? Could be. It might just be that we have a lot of pizza lovers in the city, and they want to have 8 or 9 pizza places that they can walk to. My 6th grader would argue it's the froyo, it's Sweet Frog. That's, his favorite thing about the city, other than the schools, of course. But I think not. I think our city has thrived because of our schools. Our excellent schools drive our city and the value of our homes. And Mr. Tarter, I especially encourage you. You stood on our porches last year and you told us how much you value the schools. And I just encourage you to please do the right thing. Follow through with the promises that you made to us and vote to fully fund our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is from Ashton Kuchiman. And that's Kutchma. Okay. The next speaker slip that I have is from Mr. Justin Castillo, followed by Shauna Russell.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor Snyder, members of council. I just want to bring up a couple of points. I've been pestering you over the past few months about assessments and housing values. And one of the things I see sometimes in commentary locally about the budget and the tax rate that is proposed and is even in effect now is that these are eye-watering high levels of tax rates. And I think there's some good news in our future. I spoke with a local real estate agent just a couple of days ago who says currently in Falls Church, she tells her customers they'll get the assessed value plus $100,000. And what I see on list prices now, they're running about 25% above assessed value. So what that translates in is if we were to be assessing real estate at that rate now, we'd be looking at a tax rate of about $1.15. And so I think that puts into perspective that things are good, and I think they're getting better with respect to real estate valuations, which I know in the end it's what you pay, it's not what the particular inputs are. But to the extent that there's a notion that rates are somewhat out of whack with other rates locally, I think there's some good news that's coming down the pike for next year. The other thing I would just point out is how abnormal our school system is. We have a graduation rate of 100%, dropout rate of 0, which, Arlington recently was very pleased to see their dropout rate around 6 or 7%. And I think that's an exceptionalism that you could take for granted, and I don't think we should. We built a great system, and we won't keep it simply by assuming that past performance is an indication of future results. And so with that, I will leave the balance of my time to other people because I know it's going to be a long night. So thank you all for your support.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is from Shauna Russell, followed by Bruce Swenson.
Hello, Mayor Baruch and members of City Council. My name is Shauna Russell, and I reside at 609 Poplar Drive. I'm currently serving as the PTA president for our elementary schools, and I'm also the parent of a 4th grader and a 2nd grader. I consider myself extremely fortunate to have been given the opportunity to serve in this role and believe passionately in our students, their families, and most of all, the staff that makes our schools so special. I enjoy helping to strengthen the school-home connection for our community, but the most fulfilling part of my job is the opportunity to support our teachers. Over the years, I've gotten to know many of them through various PTA initiatives, as well as my children's teachers. I am in awe of how much they do to inspire and motivate my children. My kids enjoy going to school and come home every day bursting with enthusiasm over something new that they learned that day. And the reason is they're amazing teachers. Teachers like Lisa Allen, my daughter's 4th grade teacher. Any of you who've had a preteen in the house are well aware that they know everything and are too cool for all of that. And yet Ms. Allen makes it cool to be a history buff. And my daughter is excited to tell us about all the things that she's learned about the colonists. These teachers have instilled in my children a love of books and numbers, as well as learning about history and geography and the world around them. Their teachers have helped them become better members of our community and of the world, and for that, I am extremely grateful. I've spent a lot of time in the classrooms of my children over the past 5 years, and am impressed by how well the teachers work with the ever-growing class size. I can also tell you firsthand there is a big difference between a class of 22 8-year-olds, which was the size of my son's second grade class in September, and a class of 25, the size it is today. Our school population continues to grow every day, and we need more teachers to meet that growth. We need to take action to keep our class sizes at levels that provide an effective environment for our children to learn and our teachers to teach. The school board's budget request is far from outlandish. The request is focused on items mandated by the Commonwealth of Virginia and on our critical needs. It represents the bare minimum the city schools need. Our teachers manage to do so much with so little, but they can only take so much more. Please fund the school board's request in full. Demonstrate that you value our city's future, that you value our children, and that you understand the critical importance of maintaining the excellence in our city schools. I think we owe that to our school staff and to our kids and to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is for Mr. Bruce Swenson, followed by Ms. Connie Elliott.
I'm Bruce Swenson of 311 North Lee Street, and I'm going to express the opinion that most people haven't heard here tonight. I don't support fully funding the schools. There are a majority of the people in this city who don't have children in the school system and who are subsidizing the schools, and there are limits to how much people can afford to subsidize. I did a back of the envelope calculation today of how much a 10% tax increase would take out of a person's disposable income, and it came out to be 22%. That's a retiree living on a fixed income, and you're asking the retirees to pay for this. We've heard here tonight people are moving into the city because of the schools. Well, then we need to find a way for those people to pay their fair share and to stop asking the majority of the people who live in the city to continue subsidizing at ever-increasing rates. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is Ms. Connie Elliott. Followed by Ms. Maggie Rainstein.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Congratulations on the baby, Mr. Mayor. I hope you're getting sleep.
Thank you.
I seem to come back to this whenever I walk into this room. The man on that wall once wrote that no free government or the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people but by a firm adherence to justice, moderation, temperance, frugality, and virtue, and by frequent recurrence to fundamental principles. Unfortunately, he didn't tell us what we ought to do when those imperatives, when those basic values, are in conflict with one another. Sometimes figuring out the right thing to do isn't so easy or popular. We are faced with the impulse to, the imperative to do the virtuous, to fund our schools. We are faced with the basic principle of necessity, taking care of our stormwater system. Those of us who live in the Broadway are very familiar with how necessary it is to take care of the stormwater system, having had stormwater blowouts this high on the second floor of our building during our first year or two in operation. And we are faced with the need for frugality in the face of flat economic growth. I ask the council to be mindful that incomes for city residents are relatively flat. The economy is expanding in what economists would generously call a U-shaped recovery. Currently, the federal government is sending out furlough notices. Federal employees are trying to figure out how they will meet their bills for this year. Major contractors, such as SAIC, is laying off people, some in the city. Contractors are shrinking their payrolls throughout. To put a personal face on this, in my industry, which is a small niche sector of computer consulting, more than half of the small businesses in that sector have gone out of business since 2008. The man whose picture on that wall also wrote that all power is vested in and consequently derived from the people. It's the same for our money. Money flows from us through the state to all the various programs. You, the council, are faced with the unenviable decision of having to figure out who to take the money from. Other city programs, other citizens, from citizens who are childless, from citizens who, like me, homeschool or send our children to private school and will never enjoy the benefit of the schools, from those who choose to retire here and live on fixed incomes. What do small increases mean to them? I conclude by saying that the desire of the public school parents to ask you to fully fund the schools is understandable and laudable, but that they need to understand that those desires exist in tension with the other imperative needs of the citizens of our city. I ask that you be mindful of the economic climate and the employment environment in which we live and all struggle, and that you keep tax revenues as flat as possible until such time as growth returns to the economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is Miss Maggie Reinstein, I believe.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Maggie Reinstein, and I must first admit that I no longer live in the city of Falls Church. But when my children were young, I lived at 209 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I want to talk to you about a little girl who came into Mount Daniel and had a lot of needs. A lot of trouble learning to read, trouble with speech all through elementary school, and definitely trouble with organizing writing. It was thanks to the patience of her speech pathologist, Pam Keller, wonderful teachers like June Shalou and Heidi Lang, who identified my daughter's needs and put her on the road to such success that I'd like to tell you tomorrow she's walking on the stage of O2 and giving a speech that she wrote herself in front of a major client. She regularly gives speeches in London to 250, 400 people, and these are speeches that she writes herself. Her confidence is limitless, her horizons are global, and I firmly believe that it all began here. You were the foundation for my daughter, and the schools are the foundation for this city. Please give them full funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are all the speaker slips that I have. Are there other members of the public that wish to address the council on the budget items? Mr. Lajeunesse.
I'm Robert Lajeunesse, 409 South Virginia Avenue. Every year, for the last 3 years at this time of year, we have this same debate that pits the school community against the tax-paying community. And every year I come here and argue that those are false battle lines, that the battle lines are actually between the bond-holding class and the rest of us. And that this year, though, it's particularly different because we're promised all this new development. We have this new development coming online. We're supposed to tolerate high-density development, trucks delivering candy and potato chips through our community so that we can have these revenues that flow in. And so the question is, why can't we find some way to leverage that development into the future? So that we can invest in the infrastructure needed to invest in the schools. So I am here today in support of option 3, which takes 1.5 million of the fund balance, this lockbox of $12 million, and invest it not in operations, as the summary says, but in the human capital of investing in the schools. Okay, that is very important that we characterize that as human capital investment and other infrastructure investments, and it's not an operations budget. That would allow us to leverage the infrastructure needed until the development comes online. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public that wish to address council on the budget items? Okay, not seeing any, I'm going to go ahead and close these items up for public comment and open it up for council discussion and motions. So council, what I propose that we do is just open it up for just global comments on all the options, but then take the options in the following order. option 3, option 4, option 2B, option 2, and the original option 2, as have been identified. I believe there was a note that set that out earlier today.
Mr. Mayor, before we begin, can we get some clarity on the actual names of these different options? For example, in the materials we received earlier today, it seems like it's a bit different than what actually is on
Sure,
the
we can quickly go through those. So option 3, I believe, was the option that Mr. Duncan proposed, which would set the rate, I believe, $1.27.5, I believe, would be the rate under that option. Option 4 is the option that Ms. Berry and Mr. Kalin proposed that would set the rate at $1.29. Option 2B would set the rate at $1.31. Option 2 would set the rate at $1.30.5. And option 2 would set the rate, or the original option 2 would set the rate at $1.31.
Is option 2 modified now, called option 2?
Yes.
So, option 2 modified is now option 2?
Correct.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else as far as questions? All right, let me go ahead and open it up for council member comments, and then I'm happy to take the motions in that order. People ready to go? Okay. If I can get a...
If anybody wants to see our comments, they can watch a replay of the meeting.
All right, so if I can get if there is a motion for option 3. Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the consideration and discussion of my option at the work session Thursday night. Appreciate the staff's help in hammering it into legislative language. And thanks to the citizens who've expressed their support for the idea that I brought forward. I was able to secure a promise from one of my colleagues that he would second my motion for purposes of discussion, and I appreciated that. However, after individual discussions with enough council members that even I can count, it's clear that my proposal does not have sufficient support to warrant, I think, taking the time of council and the citizens tonight for its consideration. I appreciate that several of the other options include some of the ideas that are incorporated in option number 3, and so I respectfully withdraw option 3 from consideration for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Okay. We are on to option 4. Is there a motion on option 4? Mr. Kalin?
I move to adopt QR 13, 4, option 4.
On second reading, thank you. If I can get a second?
Second.
It's Ms. Berry on the second. Discussion on this? Mr. Kalin?
Thank you. I've obviously heard all of the comments here as well. Everybody supports the schools. This is not a question of cutting the schools or cutting the budget. There's been sort of a conflagration of a reduction in the rate of growth with a cut in the schools. This is not the case. No one doubts there has been an expansion of enrollment, and either Johanna or I have questioned the numbers produced by the schools. What we would like to see, however, is that there be a 10% increase in the transfer amount instead of 14%. That suggestion actually came from Phil to consider that in the options, and that in turn was based on a recommendation made by one of the school board members. So this is not a number that is arbitrarily picked out in the sense that we have specific new data to provide, but that it is in the realm of the feasible. We believe this feature has a number of, or this option has a number of important features. One is that it will allow us to provide for stormwater. It allows us to expand and increase our capital account, which largely will be used for the schools. This money would be used by the schools for their constructions in the capital account. It's not money taken from the school system, it's just redeployed. And it does so in a manner where it's a 2-cent increase over the current rate, so it's very much sensitive to the issues regarding the ability of some taxpayers to handle any tax rate increases at all. One of the very important components of this is that it places, of the options being discussed, except for the one by the manager, the least pressure on future tax rate increases. Why do we care? Well, the fact that we're here today with this discussion is in part related to decisions made in the summer in which we decided, rather than to save our surplus, we would spend half of it, of which $1 million went to tax credits, which were 3 cents, and about $500,000 for the computers, about $1.4 million, about 4 cents on the tax rate there. So we find ourselves now having given back money and spent capital one-time money surplus on operating expenses in a situation where, if we had not done that, there would have been a starting tax rate already at 127, and 1 or 2 cents would have topped it off. But no, we tend to look to the short term. What is the short-term measure? What will take care of today's issue? And we do not look what's going on in the future. If we go down this path of the 131, the options 2, and their various varieties, next year's budget discussion will be a repeat of this one, except worse. There has to be a way to put some stability and some moderation, as one of the speakers said, so that we can manage the necessary increases that will develop. There's no question that next year's school budget will be maybe not 14%, but it'll be in the high single digits or thereabouts, so that we don't have this discussion, because eventually we will run out of resources to pay. The economic development that we are looking for is still years away, probably 5 years before we start to get real impacts from it. So we're going to have 5 years or so. It's where it's going to be a struggle to fund everything in a balanced fashion. One of the speakers said that Ms. Barry and I had made a commitment during our campaign that the increases in enrollment due to the development projects would be, in fact, covered. And that is, in fact, the case. All of the mixed-use development projects generate more income than they do school costs. So we have very much lived up to our responsibilities and to our promises. I'd like that to be clear for the record. So for a variety of reasons that I've mentioned here, we believe that the option 4, or the $1.29, 10% growth in the schools, 10% now, this is not small potatoes, this is a very big increase, be considered for FY14's school transfer budget. And I'll leave it if Ms. Barry has any additional comments to make.
Thank you. I realize that the reason this room is packed, and appropriately so, is that this option certainly is a polarizing one. I understand that. But I honestly believe that not only is my support of this option completely consistent with everything I said when I ran for office, but I also believe that it is honestly in the long-term best interest of the city, because sustainability relies on the appropriate balance of revenue and expense. As painful and as unpopular as that might be. So I repeat and I regret that the option before us may appear unpopular and may not be embraced, but it is critical to building a future for both schools and city viability.
Thank you, Ms. Berry. Other council member comments? Okay, if we can have the roll call vote, please. And this is on option 4.
This is on option 4, moved by Mr. Kalin, seconded by Ms. Berry. Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
No.
Mr. Kalin?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
No.
Mr. Snyder?
No.
Mr. Tarter?
No.
Mayor Brooke?
No.
Thank you, council. The motion fails.
We're on to option 2B. This is an option that I floated to council members, I believe, at the meeting, a couple meetings ago now, I can't remember which, in an effort to get to a balanced approach and try to reach compromise on the council. I don't know if there's support for it, so I'm not going to go at length in discussing it. What I will say about option 2 is it still gets close to funding the schools at the request that they requested. It does drop them by about 1%, but it does provide for the capital needs and ensures that the capital needs are restored. Therefore, we can clearly meet our capital obligations, not only on the city side, but also to the schools in the future years, because it does put money back into the PAYGO and capital programs, which I know is desperately needed. I know that we heard from the schools this evening about how important their capital needs are. And I know that that's been a very difficult issue to fund. So one of the attractive aspects of option 2B is that it does that. It really puts a lot of emphasis on ensuring that our capital needs, both on the city side and the school side, are met. But that does mean a slight trim on the operating side. So, you know, I offer that up for council members. I certainly would support it if there is a motion by council members to bring this forward. So, is there a motion on 2B? I'm not seeing any. Let's move to option 2. And this would be to modify.
Mr. Mayor, I would move approval of option 2B.
On the second reading?
On second reading.
Vice Mayor.
2B modified. 2 modified.
Just the motion.
Okay, delete all that. Let's start all over.
Vice Mayor Snyder, can I just ask you to read the proposed motion? That may make it easier.
I'm not sure. I didn't go to Falls Church schools, but my kids did. So. Yeah, it's 2 modified is the name of it. It's the budget has it is at the revenues are 1.305. There's funding for the cable TV. We cover the school facility charge. No reduction in the school budget request. Funding is eliminated for restoration of fund balance and for the capital reserves. The use of fund balance to fund capital improvement projects. The budget funds for the new stormwater enterprise fund, we would contribute $900,000 to that and delay the first payment in that until June. So that's pretty much the outline. Mr. Mayor, would it be appropriate, is there a second?
Is there a second? Is Mr. Pepe on the second on that?
Who made the motion, please?
That's Mr. Snyder on the motion and then Mr. Pepe on the second.
This is for option 2.
This is option 2.
Original option 2?
No, this is move to adopt TO 13-7 option 2 on second reading.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, now, moving right along. Just a couple quick comments. First, I want to thank everybody here, our citizens, staff, and colleagues for very thoughtful and passionate budget commentary. I know we've all looked at the emails, we've tried to respond to them personally, but all of this input really helps our deliberations. You know, it's been said that a budget reflects the community's values. I've always felt that it's our job up here to represent those values as well as to contribute our own well-informed views. First of all, on taxes, and I want to make this point, there would be absolutely no need to raise taxes this year or in prior years if the state gave us back a decent amount of the taxes that our citizens pay. So I want everyone to understand the context in which we exist. It is an artificially created context due to Virginia tax policy and the ridiculous school funding formula that seriously disadvantages all Northern Virginia jurisdictions, especially this one. We've all worked to reduce the tax rate that was originally proposed at 136. If you included the stormwater at 133, if you included the stormwater amount, it would have been up to 141, which was the advertised amount. The tax rate that's proposed in this option is significantly lower. First of all, on the schools, no human institution is perfectly efficient, but we know that our schools are recognized by the parents, by the students, certainly by the staff, and more importantly, by non-citizens alike as being really very good. This year, in my opinion, they made the case for their request in full. This is based on dramatic increases in school population, the need to keep class sizes small, the need to competitively compensate school teachers, and the need for additional safety expenditures. On the city government side, the city presented a reasonable constrained budget request. I don't think any of us saw any areas where cuts could be made safely, especially with regard to public safety. In fact, I'll ask my council members in a minute if they have an interest in increasing that expenditure at this point or discussing it further with city management. I would be comfortable with either approach. On the fund balance, this option is certainly in the range of the fund balance proposed by the CFO expert group that proposed a minimum of 17%. We're very close to that with this budget. So there's an effort here to keep us sound in the long term as well. Finally, as I said, this particular option provides the initial funding for the Stormwater Enterprise Fund. So we're dealing with infrastructure, we're protecting our schools, we're dealing with the needs of the city government, including public safety. We are providing for the long-term future, and we have listened to the taxpayers in reducing the amount that we're asking from the taxpayers from where we could have been at the start of this budget process. So for all these reasons, I urge a positive vote on option 2.
Thank you. And just since Mr. Vice Mayor Snyder was gauging council about support for the police officer, certainly if we go in that direction of option 2, I would certainly support adding in the position for the police officer. Mr. Pepe?
I'd like to agree with Mr. Snyder, so I won't repeat most of the things he said. You know, it's interesting. I've been doing this now for, I think, 16 years, adopting budgets like this, and I came from a place where it was a lot harder to get any kind of budget passed, and we didn't have quite the level of support of education that we have here in Falls Church, so it's been easier longer on. But I also hear what we're hearing and the comments we get about how tough it is for everyone to pay. As I said the other night, we don't have any money. All the money we have is money we take from everybody who's sitting out there and everybody else in the city. And I think the council's mindful of that. I used to always get letters when we make decisions over the years saying, well, you didn't listen to us because we didn't come to a decision that everyone agreed with. And frankly, it's not that we don't listen, we listen, but sometimes we have to make a decision and we have to draw the line and balance things out as it was said. So I'm going to support this motion as well as that sort of balance, but it doesn't mean we're done. We've got to keep working to figure out about growing the tax base and figuring out other ways to pay for it, because as Mr. Kalin has pointed out, it's not sustainable just to extrapolate from where we are now and assume everybody can keep paying for it. So that is going to be one of the challenges we face. I do think on the police position, as we heard, there are a lot of other issues there. There's some personnel issues, and I think maybe we need to take a little bit of time and learn a little more about that and perhaps have a work session that we could discuss that in detail and see what could be done.
Other council members? Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A citizen I know well, a working mother, creative class professional, a parent of 2 kids who graduated from George Mason, a friend since my days as a Little League dad, wrote this: I know the city needs revenue to keep up the great work of our exceptional schools and government, but now I see a proposal to increase taxes by approximately $1,000 a year. I paid $8,400 in taxes in 2012. I've not had a raise in 3 years. I work 2 jobs to make ends meet, and I have 2 children in college. I drive a 9-year-old car, and I can only afford to make the bare minimum repairs and upkeep on my home. I don't pretend to understand the delicate balance of a well-run city and the money it needs, but I do know that this type of increase will push me further toward leaving the city. I hope you will cautiously consider this increase before making any decisions. I love it in Falls Church. I feel privileged to live here, and I don't want to have to consider moving. It's for hardworking citizens such as that Little League mom, who I've known for quite a while, that I've tried to persuade my council colleagues to consider options for a budget built around a reasonable tax rate while maintaining excellence in schools and city services. I've realized here that I'm the only person who's lived 3 different lives in Falls Church: the life of the young married without kids for about 10 years, the life of the couple with kids for about 15 years, and now that both the kids are away or went to college, the empty nester. That's why I try in our efforts to find balance, and it's why I've put a lot of ideas into play, including some ideas that I didn't necessarily support, but I thought were important to be part of the discussion. It has been, I think, a good discussion. I've had a little trouble sleeping lately, and I've appreciated having something to read on my iPhone in the wee hours. There's always new emails coming from folks, and I'm very serious. I really, appreciate reading those, even the ones I don't agree with. There's some, when I read them, I agree with part and I disagree with the other part, but the passion that people have brought to this is terrific, and we're very fortunate for that. All this has led me to conclude that option 2 modified that we're talking about here right now is the best deal I think that we can get. I take solace in having made a little headway in trimming the tax rate increase from what my friend talked about initially. We've lowered the stormwater fee and delayed its collection until we more judiciously build this new utility. And we've introduced, I think, into the public dialogue the notion that council must do more to help the community understand the current fund balance policy, so citizens will not be puzzled when we raise their taxes tonight and then, a few weeks from now, report another large surplus. The attributes of option 2 modified that Mr. Snyder and Mr. Pepe listed are what attracted me to it, and I intend to vote for it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Other council members? Mr. Kaler? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tartar.
Before I get started, I'd like to read a disclosure. After reviewing this matter and discussing it with the city attorney pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3112 and 3115G, I would like to disclose regarding the budget. My wife, Karen Schools, works for the Falls Church City Public Schools, and we are a member of a group of 3 or more people who will be affected by the City Council's vote on the budget. Therefore, based on my review, I believe that I can participate in this matter fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Regarding the stormwater program, I own property, my house, that has suffered flooding that may be impacted by stormwater improvement projects to be built under that program. And I'm a member of a group of 3 or more people who will be affected by the stormwater program. Therefore, again, based on my review, I believe that I can participate in this matter fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. With that out of the way, let me say this is my first budget cycle on council, and it's been a challenging one. I had really hoped that we could find a way to keep taxes flat. I know they're a burden for a lot of folks in this city, but we've had an unforeseen and well-documented skyrocketing of the school population. I believe that the needs of the schools are real, and that's why I'm going to support option 2 modified, which fully funds the school request, but at a rate a half cent lower than option 2 original and option 2B. For me, this budget cycle has highlighted the need to aggressively seek economic development. By creating a vibrant downtown, we can generate the tax revenues over time necessary to bring our tax rates more in line with our neighbors. By this summer, we can have 3 new grocery stores approved for our city: the Good Fortune Supermarket Eden Center, the Harris Teeter on Broad Street, and the Fresh Market on Maple. which will bring in hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in tax revenue. With the sale of the water system and the related boundary line adjustment, the city will have another opportunity for significant economic growth. These are the opportunities we must embrace to fund the things important to us while keeping our tax rates affordable. Lastly, with respect to the surplus of last year, we returned approximately $900,000 to taxpayers. If there had not been this significant and unforeseen increase in enrollment, I think we'd be speaking about another tax reduction right now. So I don't think we're here today because we gave some of the money back that we had in excess last year, but because we have had an unforeseen and significant school enrollment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council members? Mr. Cameron?
I beg to differ with Mr. Tarter because the schools said that they know a year in advance that the school enrollment was going to be, very high. The fact is that a number of us said this was an error. I felt it was a monumental mistake that we were going to be giving the money back and then taking it away within 6 months. The checks would effectively pass in the evening, and for whatever reason, I was correct, and the citizens had the benefit of that tax rebate, or excuse me, the tax credit for half a year, and now we've taken the whole thing back and more. Now, I have not been a tax hawk per se. I've supported previous tax increases, and I'm willing to do what is reasonable, but we have to be careful with the way we manage. I know I've gotten myself into some hot water by saying sometimes we make decisions that are highly emotional. By the way, it is well known that in finance, things that affect people's lives in the most fundamental ways, most of the decisions are emotional. People do not approach issues even of that magnitude in what we would call a necessarily rational or logical fashion. It's the way we're designed. It's part of our DNA. It's not that it's wrong, it's the way we are. And this is something we have to work around. I repeat, 2015 will likely be worse than this year, and we're going to have a repeat of this discussion because we are really not taking care of what we need to build a fluid and sustainable city. I support Dave's ideas. I think there is a great chance for economic development. It's very bright, and the projects he mentioned, I would certainly agree will help a great deal. They're years down the road, but the school system has indicated that it has $114 million in projected capital expenses. If there's anybody in this room today with the resources we know we have, not what may have, could have, but what we have now, and whatever existing little projects we have, and they're little because we earn maybe a couple 100,000. Teeters would be the best at over $1 million, but our expenditure increases are in the millions of dollars, not in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can check that out if you want to take a look at what the financial condition is. Where are we going to get the money to even get access to $114 million? We have to be very prudent in the way we manage, because the long run is for the kids who aren't even in school yet. It's for the kids that'll be here. This isn't just for our kids in their schools now. It's for everybody going forward, and that's the planning that has to be done, and that is the responsibility of a city council and everybody in the room. So I want to make that clear. Finally, the outlines of 2 modified, except for the fact that at 129 we don't generate the amount of revenue that this would generate because it's a higher tax rate, is not all that different. It's really what we had recommended in option 4 is not all that different that was recommended in option 2 modified, except that the tax rate is lower. And I'm pleased to see that those who've been among the most adamant in opposing any tax rate increase for whatever reason and cutting valuable staff in previous conversations have come to the reasonable conclusion that we can only cut city services so far, and that if we want to have these services, we have to pay for them. And that has always been my position, and we're being completely consistent with that position, Johanna and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Other council members? I want to make some concluding remarks. Just one thing I'll point out again, the difference between what we've been talking about between option 2 and 2B really amounts to what we're doing with the capital improvements projects, specifically how they're financed and paid for. Option 2B, which is not going to be voted on this evening, would have put money back into the PAYGO, and we would have been ready to take those capital projects on. This is going to have a clear effect on how we handle FY15 and the budget that are upcoming. So I just wanted to put the marker down. I suspect that option 2 is going to pass this evening, but I just want to be clear as the budget development process begins for FY15. Again, my hope is that we can continue to focus in on capital improvements. We don't have infinite resources. I think we are going to be in a constrained fiscal environment when it comes to the operating budgets. So I would just ask the school community and also the city apparatus that we need to be very careful with how much we're growing on the operating side in order to meet clear capital needs. We heard from the schools this evening. We've had numerous presentations on the need for capital, and we're not going to be able to continue the level of growth we're seeing on the budgets on the school side and meet all of our capital needs and keep the tax rates to a sustainable level. So I would just urge caution as we begin the next budget process, that we do it in a collaborative way. My hope is that both the City Council and the school board can really begin to focus on the capital side and really begin to focus on doing what needs to get done on the operating side, but realizing that there's going to be constraints that are going to be needed if we are going to meet the huge challenges that we have upcoming on the capital front. So with that, if we can have the roll call vote on option 2.
Mr. Mayor, just one quick question before we do. I wondered if it would be agreeable to council to ask the city manager to set up a work session in the very near future to discuss any additional police needs that we have. Would that be agreeable?
Yeah, I certainly am happy to calendar that. Mr. Shields, I think we're going to have to do that under executive session, given some of the personnel matters. Mr. Foster, I take it that would be appropriate to do that in a closed session?
You can discuss personnel matters in closed session, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If I can have the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mayor, so we're voting on Mr. Snyder's motion, option 2 modified.
It's 2 modified at a tax rate of $1.30.5.
$1.305. Option 2 modified. Ms. Berry?
No.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalin?
No.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tartar?
Yes.
Mayor Brugh?
Yes.
Thank you, council. Option 2, tax rate of $1.305 passes.
And I don't think we need to go through option 2, or I'm sorry, original option 2. So unless there's any objections, we're going to move past that. All right, so we're on to the stormwater utility. Mr. Shields, council members, why don't we take 5 minutes while the gallery clears out? Why don't we come back at 9:25?
All's well that ends well. Okay.
the stormwater utility. Mr. Hicks?
Good evening, members of council, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. We've talked about this a great deal. What is before you tonight is to adopt the ordinance TO 13-9, which establishes the stormwater utility. This was read in March, and this is the second reading for this ordinance. We have received comments and dialogue with you and the community, and there are three major changes to the ordinance that we wanted to go through tonight in very short order. The first is in line 127, we talk about the appeals process. There was a strong concern that if there needed to be an adjustment to a bill that the Director of Public Works, he's really a great guy, but nonetheless, we didn't want the buck to stop there. We wanted to have an appeals process that goes beyond the Director, and we have added the Utility Commission that is already established that oversees work in our water and sewer utilities. So we've added that in, and that is in line 432 of the ordinance. There has been a great deal of discussion about what the credit policy will be as we move forward with this ordinance. What this does tonight is establishes that we will have a credit policy. We have a draft policy that we will work with you guys until that July 1st date when we need to set the rate for certain. We'll also set the credit policy. So that will be work that we will conduct with you guys over the next 6 weeks or so. And the last is the timing of the first bill. This plans for, as was discussed in the adopted budget that you just worked through, that first bill would go out to the community in June of 2014. Now, there were a couple other comments that are in the staff report where we have tried to clean up the ordinance, to address those comments, but they're minor in comparison to those three issues. And I'll be glad to talk with you about those or any other aspect about this.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Questions, council members? Ms. Berry?
This isn't a question, but I believe there were letters in support from ESC and I don't know, VPAS as well.
Yes.
For the stormwater discussion and structure, and I just wanted to make sure that was noted for the record.
And I'll add that while I haven't seen a final letter from the Tree Commission, there was also I saw a draft that was supportive as well.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hicks. That Public Works Director, he is a fine fellow, I think. When you say set the credit policy, you mean, we will have the credit policy in place, and it's my understanding that before the bills go out, if anyone has a BMP, they would receive credit for it on the first bill that they receive next June. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. This is a very important thing we're doing. To some degree, it seems like, oh yeah, okay, we're done with the important stuff, now on to this. But this, over the long haul, is arguably more important than a one-year budget. The first creation of a new utility in Falls Church since quite a while, I think. So I commend all your hard work on it. I know the plan has evolved over time and will continue, I hope, to evolve. Some of the emails that I was referring to earlier came in were specifically on stormwater, and I thought asked some good questions, some of which we've already answered, some of which we are now answering, and a few of which maybe we can still have a chance to answer. I just wanted to close by saying that not to represent this conversation as the official position of any institution, but over the weekend I was at Falls Church Presbyterian seeking guidance from any higher power about how to vote on the budget, and had a conversation with several folks there who were very pleased with the meeting that staff had with the leaders of the faith communities, and we're very pleased to hear that the credit program would be, as you described, set up and credited to them before their first bill. That helps them in managing their budgets next year. First of all, the delay to collecting next year was a help, and the fact that the credit would apply, assuming their BMP is approved for the credit in time for the first bill, was pleasing to them. And, you know, there's a general recognition that this is an important environmental initiative. They want to participate in it, and they did appreciate the work that was done to accommodate their needs in this instance. So I just wanted to bring that up to let you know that we were talking about you over the weekend, too, not only during the week, and that it was a good vibe, I think. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other council members? Okay, Mr. Snyder?
Yeah, are you accepting comments or only questions?
Comments or questions?
Okay. I want to thank the mayor for showing a lot of initiative here and all of our colleagues who worked hard on this. I mean, I still think there are a lot of issues to be talked about, including the right mix of long-term financing versus number of employees. Is there a way to make this deductible for those who want to deduct it? Questions like that, but we got to get going with this thing, so it seems to me we need to take this step tonight. So I'll be supporting it, but I hope there'll be continued community dialogue on these things, because the community, I think, is still coming up to speed on this. We have gotten comments, very detailed comments on both sides of the issue. So I'm voting for this under the assumption that we'll continue to dialogue on some of these issues. Thank you.
Other council members, Mr. Kalin?
Thank you. I certainly would like to compliment Bill and his team for all the work that they've done. I would also like to know what medications he takes to keep his patients and so forth, so that I can get some of that. Yeah, that's the other component. But I do believe that it is essential, and I have argued that a fund be established that could operate independently of the general fund, and that the people who have been subsidizing our tax rates for years, and I repeat, for years, by paying for the water damage in their basements, and in us not paying our share as a community. It's, you know, it's not a powerful group, and it takes a while, but these individuals merit the same care and the same attention as anyone else. And without getting too worked up here, without just one segment that we spoke about today, this is a critical component, and I am really, really pleased that we're right at the cusp of getting this thing started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalin. Other council members? I just wanted to throw my support behind this. Obviously, I've spoken numerous times about stormwater management and the need to take care of basic city services, and stormwater management is certainly one of them. And this was one of the main issues that I heard when I first campaigned, I guess it would have been back in 2008, of the clear need to do more on stormwater management. So I'm happy that this is finally coming forward. Thanks to Bill and our consultants and the rest of the city staff for really bringing this to fruition. It was my pleasure to serve as one of the council points on the stormwater issues. So thank you to my fellow council members for their support in bringing this initiative forward. I know that it's taken up a tremendous amount of time on the calendar to work through the difficult issues, and there's still a lot of work to be done, as Vice Mayor Snyder mentioned. But I'm glad that we're getting this program underway. Other council members? All right. If I can get a motion, then we'll open it up. Mr. Kalin? Did I, Mr. Kalin?
Did you have a question?
No, I was going to.
Oh. Yeah, if you don't mind turning on your mic.
I move the final adoption of TO 13-9.
If I can get a second, please.
Second.
Is Ms. Berry on the second? I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item? Ms. Bichow, did we receive any written comments you can summarize for us? Great, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close this item for public comment, and if we can have the roll call vote.
On TO 13-09, Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalin?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Ms. Mester? We're on to the CIP item.
Yes, Mayor, this would be ordinance 13-08, setting the CIP and the, for the 5 years and the revenue and expenditures for FY14. This is the third formal opportunity that council has had at a regular meeting and throughout the entire budget process. We reviewed at work sessions relevant portions of the CIP rated based on the department you were reviewing that evening. So I'm not going to do a full review this evening. I just wanted to highlight 3 points that are modifications to the staff report and the ordinance before you. On lines 70 to 75 of the staff report, you will note that the staff did refer out this ordinance as council requested at its previous meeting to the boards and commissions listed there. I received no additional comments to report to you. These boards had previous times opportunity to speak to before the Planning Commission, and they had no changes or comments. I did additionally brief the Planning Commission in full on the changes that had evolved from their February adoption through the 15th. At that time, they made no additional formal comments to forward back to council. On line 77, you will note there's a $10,000 decrease in transportation, regional surface transportation, or RSTP funds. That's also reflected in the ordinance adjusting the dollar totals related to the traffic signal management system. That is a shift of funding from 14 to 13, so it shows as a net reduction in 14. But we've adjusted for the costs for expenditures needed in the second phase of the closed loop and phase 1. And then the final note that I would make is an addition at line 82 to 88, where the staff report identifies the needs for Big Chimneys Park improvements and the possibilities that could be part of the redevelopment application coming before council for second reading. And if such things were to come to fruition, we could amend the CIP at a subsequent time. So the only material change then to note in the ordinance that starts at line 134, which lies out all the projects and the funding, would be page 5 of 7, traffic signal management, decreasing it by the 10,000 previously noted. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. That's why we're seeing the strike through from 300,000 to 280 and change, right? That's the traffic signal management system.
Right. For the 10,016, and then the math corrections just follow down through the subtotals. To the
no other changes, though?
No other changes.
All right. Council member comments? Yep.
This is fine. I just have a quick question. The $100 million that is scheduled for FY16, unclear that we'll be in conditions to have financing for that. At what point does that get pushed out? The new Georgia Mason.
Well, it's adopted every year, so it could get pushed out.
Right, so we'll revisit it for the 15 through 19.
Okay, so as we approach, we'll get that, okay.
Yeah, so the only things that would be essentially appropriated now are the 14 lines.
Right.
Right, and I will note that if you go over to the sources total, which is just above the one line of 137, you will see that the high school and the middle school expansion are showing as sources only if grant funded or revenue offset. So it's still highlighted that we need to work through those options.
Okay. All right, anything else? Any other questions? Vice Mayor Snyder?
Just really a positive comment. When you look at this CIP list, it's clear that we are taking care of the people's business here, from public safety to transportation to parks to other things that are fundamental to maintaining the quality of life here. So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? One quick question. Mr. Duncan?
I've seen this several times, and I've been meaning to ask, is the item on street sign retroflectivity? Is that the actual word, or is it reflectivity?
That is my understanding from our wonderful Director of Public Works, that it's the correct word.
So I'm
that I
thinking-
can rarely pronounce, so I just call it changing signs so it has better visibility at night.
I mean, I've just never heard of a retroflective sign, but maybe I just don't know.
Maybe
Just
it-
assuming, anyway, if it's fine, it's fine. If
It'd
it's
be the
not.
correct word.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else?
Oh, yes.
All right. If I can get a motion, then we'll open it up for public comment. Vice Mayor Snyder.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TO 13-08 on second reading.
Thank you. If I can get a second.
Move.
That's Ms. Berry on the second. Any members of the public that wish to address this item? Ms. Bishau, did we receive any public comments that we haven't talked about so far? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this item for public comment, and if I can have the roll call vote. And this is on the CIP Council.
On TO 13-08, Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalen?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, council. The next item before you is the tax rate.
Council, we're going to need to amend the tax rate, given the budget that was adopted. So line 54 needs to be amended to $1.0350.
So Kathy, that would be 1.305.
I already did it.
Thank you.
And that would be on line 16 as
16
well.
as well.
I'm sorry, yeah, in the staff report. Council, if I can get any discussions or questions on this? Okay, if I can get a motion, and then we'll open it up for public comment. I need a motion.
Move to adopt, Mr. Mayor, move to adopt TO 13-06 on second reading?
As amended?
Yes, as amended, sorry.
Thank you. If I can get a second? That's Mr. Tarter on the second. Any discussions, or I'm sorry, any public comments on this? I didn't receive any speaker slips on this item in particular, other than the comments we'd received before. Ms. Bishau, any other comments that we haven't summarized before?
No, sir.
I'm going to close this item up for public comment. Council, any discussion before we take a roll call? Okay, if I can have the roll call, please.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalen?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yeah.
Mr. Tarter?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, council. The next item and the last in the series is TO 1305.
This is on the sewer
Yeah,
rates.
This is the ordinance to amend the sewer rates to increase the rate from the current $7.91 per thousand gallons to $8.62 per thousand gallons effective July 1st, 2013. The ordinance that is before the council is unchanged throughout this process since first reading, and I don't believe we've received public comment on it.
Thank you. Council, any questions on the sewer rate?
I have a quick question.
Mr.
So
Carter?
when the water, if and when the water system is sold, will we do separate billing then, or will we use the Fairfax County Water Authority for our billing for this?
In the term sheet, we've asked Fairfax Water to do it, and so we will work through the terms. What they've agreed to is that they would charge us the same administrative fee that they currently charge Fairfax County. And so that's how it will be handled after the sale.
We currently have in-house people doing that? In other words, like a staff person?
We do. Currently, we have a cost allocation of 10% of our, 5% of our water utility staff are assigned for sewer billing.
So once, we don't need to what's going to happen to that person who was doing that? Are they going to go with it to Fairfax County Water Authority? Or are they
Yes.
staying here in the?
That's correct. Those staff members will go with Fairfax Water.
All right. Anything else on this item by council members? Okay. If I can have a motion, then we'll open it up for public comment.
Mr. Mayor, I move final adoption of TO 13-05.
If I can get a second?
Second.
It's Ms. Berry on the second. Any public comments on this? Didn't receive any speaker slips on this. Ms. Bishai, did we receive any written comments? I'm going to go ahead and close this for public comment. Council, any concluding comments on this? If I can have a roll call vote?
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalen?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
The next item before you is TO 13-10, ordinance to amend Chapter 28, miscellaneous offenses, Article 7, weapons of the Falls Church City Code by the addition of Section 28-202, discharge of pneumatic guns in certain places prohibited, and exceptions.
Council, this is here on second reading. Basically amends the city code pursuant to state code authorization to regulate the use of pneumatic guns in the city. Pneumatic guns include paintball guns and BB guns and any other gun that expels a BB or pellet by action of pneumatic pressure. Just a couple of key points that I wanted to bring to City Council's attention. First, this amendment to the code is brought in part because of problems we'd had in the city with unsupervised juveniles discharging BB guns off of private property into the public rights-of-way of the city, not being supervised by adults. So under this code amendment, that behavior would now be regulated. Anybody under the age of 16 would be required to be supervised by an adult or guardian while using a BB gun or other pneumatic gun. A couple of other key points. The use of pneumatic guns is prohibited on any public property within the city. They still are allowed on private property, subject to the restrictions that are laid out here. In addition to the juvenile restriction, anyone using a pneumatic gun needs to take reasonable care when using it on their private property to ensure that it does not leave, that the projectile does not leave the boundary of the private property. And so with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Council members, any questions on this item? Okay, I know that we've had some extensive discussions about this, and I'm very pleased that this item is coming forward. I know that the family is here, so I'm going to give them an opportunity to address council, but I wanted to first give our public safety officers a chance to address this. I believe Officer Brooks is going to address this along with the chief.
Good evening, council. One, I'd like to introduce Officer Brooks, who has shepherded this this effort along with one of our young citizens here in the community, but it also supports our overall plan and strategy for gun violence prevention, and thank you for that.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you again, Chief, as well. This is one of the aspects that the Chief has brought up with our gun violence reduction program, and has definitely brought attention through, as Mr. Foster said, through one of our victims. I don't call him a victim anymore. I call him a survivor because he's utilized his experience as a way to empower himself and know that government is here for him. I think this is an excellent lesson for him. And what he doesn't realize is this week, April 21st to 27th, is also Victim Rights Week. Although we don't have a proclamation today, I just want to let you know what this means to us as a community and as a police department on what victims' rights have in Virginia. And by statute, they are able to have protection orders, they are able to have confidentiality, as well as the right to have the employers support what they need to do to protect their rights from potential offenders, such as going to court and not being punished from their employers. Another program that we have is through the VINE network, also known as Victim Information Notification Every Day. This program lets any victim know, and I'll leave brochures with the clerk, lets the general public know that when there is an offender that has been arrested or incarcerated for any reason in Virginia or 46 other states, they can receive instant notification, whether by telephone or by email, when that person is transferred or released, giving that victim ample time to prepare themselves if they were to be confronted. Lastly, I want to thank the victims' families for bringing this topic to us, because we now can hold accountable negligence for gun violence in the city to a greater degree. Having said that, we do have another set of services on Community Service Day. on April 27th from 10 to 2. Please feel free to join me for this free services for drug take-back initiative, which is free prescription drugs that you can bring over to the fire department, as well as free bike registration for all city residents, as well as free VIN etching. All programs are designed to reduce crime in the city. So thank you.
Great. Thanks very much for helping out with this particular ordinance, and thanks to Mr. Foster as well, and certainly the family for bringing this forward. I know that Ryan wanted to address the council, so I'm happy to ask him and his parents to come up, and his siblings, it looks like, are there as well. And I wanted to personally thank Ryan for, first of all, writing a letter. That's how this all started, to me, letting me know what had happened. I shared that with the rest of the council, and working with his parents, who were great supporters and pointing out to various what other jurisdictions had done and pressed on this issue coming forward. So with Ryan writing me and certainly the parents helping out, doing some research, working with our city attorney, we were able to bring this forward. So I thank Ryan for his perseverance and also for his parents' attention to this really, really important issue. And it's, I think, a great testament to the city that we have one of our younger citizens having the ability to really affect change in what's happening in the city that he lives in. So Ryan, the mic is all yours.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Officer Brooks, and Police Chief. Just for clarification for the record, I'm the dad. I'm Ryan.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Jonathan is my son.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. But we're residents of 215 West Cameron Road. Jonathan walks to school every day at Thomas Jefferson. I'm so pleased to live here where we do for the past 4 years since we moved. I'm also a pediatrician. I love to walk the streets of Falls Church. I bike to the metro station, and I'm, as a pediatrician, concerned with the safety of youngsters here in Falls Church. So if I may, if you'd allow, I'd just like to introduce Jonathan and allow him to read his brief letter, if you don't mind, that he wrote to Mayor Baruch.
This is my letter that I wrote to Mayor Baruch.
Dated September 16th, 2012.
Okay. Dear Mayor Baruch, my name is Jonathan Buckholtz, and I am a second grader at Thomas Jefferson Elementary School in Falls Church, Virginia. I'm worried about gun safety in our neighborhood. I got shot in the head by a BB gun on Friday on the way home from school. I hope you will help children go to school safely. I want you to make a law that no BB guns or airsoft guns are allowed on the ways to schools.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Thank you. And after we take the vote, what I would just ask if council would be supportive, and I don't think we've done this before, on the official or a duplicate official, I'd like to present that to Jonathan with my signature on it, if we can get that to the family so they can have that, if council members would support that. So, all right, great, thank you. And you've got great. Thanks so much to Jonathan and to his family as well for bringing this forward. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment and see if council members have any comments on this, and then we'll take the roll call. Vice Mayor Snyder.
I want to thank, obviously, the citizens for bringing this forward, and the mayor and all of the colleagues on council and our staff for working on this. I want to take just a minute, though, to single out the great work that our police do. Last night about midnight, we had an incident on our street where a car hit at least one other car, ended up going a block and ended up perpendicular to the curb. Was yet another example of how important our police protection is. But the thing that impresses me is the holistic approach they have. It's not just about responding, it's about prevention. This is an example of that. If the state of Virginia allowed us to do more on firearms, we would do it, I'm sure. I want to especially recognize the chief of police, all of our police officers for the work that they do. And our discussion earlier this evening is intended to determine if there are more resources that you need to do the job. So I want to thank you again publicly for the work that all of our officers do. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council members? Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of you know my day job is encouraging civic education and youth civic participation in particular, and so it's just terrific to see an example of that in action here in our city. So, Jonathan, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. Letters can move mountains sometimes, and you proved that, and I hope your work will serve as an example to all of your classmates and everyone in your generation that someday you will take your place in seats like this in chambers all around the country, and I think we're going to be the better off for it. Thank you.
Other council members? All right. And again, thank you to Jonathan and his family for bringing this forward. If I can have the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalin?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe? Yes. Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tartar? Yes. Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Before you now is TR 13-12, resolution to approve the plan of financing and the issuance of bonds by the City of Falls Church Economic Development Authority for the benefit of Easter Seals Greater Washington, Baltimore, Inc.
Great, thank you. And before we begin to discuss this matter, as a prudential issue, and after extensive discussions with the city attorney, I'd like to disclose that my daughter is on the waiting list for the CDC and that I'm a member of a group of 3 or more people with parents or whose parents with children at the Easter Seals or with children on the waiting list who will be affected by the Easter Seals proposed project. Therefore, I can consider these matters fairly objectively and in the public interest.
Council, we'll just note the fact that we did have a discussion of this IRB at the work session on Thursday, and this plan of financing has been approved by the Economic Development Authority. What is the council is being asked to endorse by resolution an industrial revenue bond that would be issued through the EDA for the benefit of the Easter Seals of Greater Washington, Baltimore region. I want to note that Rick Goff has been the staff lead on this as it went through the EDA. He is here to answer any questions about it. We also have John Horowitz of the Easter Seals in the audience, and Mike Graff, who represents the city's interests in these discussions as bond counsel with McGuire Woods, is also available to answer any questions of the city council. As council is aware, there was a discussion of this item before the Budget and Finance Committee, and you received their verbal comments at the work session. And I'll just stop here and ask council if you have any follow-up questions on this item. The staff recommendation is approval of the motion. Thank you.
Budget and Finance Committee, any comments? Mr. Kaler?
Thank you. The question I had about risk exposure was responded to. I had a very good conversation this afternoon. So I think there's not undue risk for the city to issue this.
I'm sorry, Mr. Kaler, there is no risk?
No additional risk.
Thank you.
No undue risk in this issue.
Thank you.
However, in the discussions of this, and this is for future consideration, I would like a policy review of the way we do our IRBs, because in this particular case, Easter Seals is doing real well. There's a lot of financial benefits for Easter Seal, and I'm not finding a corresponding benefit or anything close to that for the city. Now, I understand there are procedures and policies and so forth that are in place, and I'm not going to try and suggest that we change them now. But I would also, when we get around to the policy, and I know other jurisdictions have more favorable compensation other than 10 basis points. I would be curious to see how active their programs actually are for those types of benefits. So I will support it. Budget and Finance Committee supports it, but it has raised real issues about the value of these programs to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council members? Okay. If I can get a motion, then we'll go ahead and open it up.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TR 13-12.
If I can get a second, please.
Second.
Is Mr. Duncan on the second? I have one speaker slip. Mr. Stuart Rubin. Mr. Rubin? And for the record, that was just vote for it, please. All right, if there are, I'm going to go ahead and close this for public comment. Mr. Shaw, did we receive any written comments? I'm going to go ahead and close this to public comment, and Mr. Kalin.
See, Mr. Rubin here was, before, practically should rent a seat out in the courtroom here for the comments and for listening to this. I know you were an active participant in the last discussion, which I guess went, well, I won't comment on how it went, depending where you sit. But appreciate seeing you again. Good to see a familiar face in the audience. Thank you.
Any other comments? Ms. Berry? Okay, why don't we have the roll call, please?
On the EDA bond for Easter Seals, Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalin?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter?
Yes.
Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. The next item before you is TR 13-13, resolution to 1, approve a voluntary boundary adjustment agreement and memorandum of understanding between the City of Falls Church, Virginia and Fairfax County, and 2, request that the Commission on Local Government review and provide a favorable recommendation on the agreement and notice of voluntary settlement agreement. Before you, from Mr. Foster.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This is here for approval of a resolution. It is the first step in a multi-step process to eventually obtain approval by a 3-judge panel of the proposed boundary adjustment that was negotiated with the federal mediator in November. I know we discussed this at the closed session last week, so I'm not going to repeat that in detail here, but just to summarize for the council and those watching at home, this boundary adjustment brings into the city 3 parcels that are commonly known as the George Mason and Mary Ellen Henderson campus, parcels 91, 93, and 94. It also brings into the city several parcels that are adjacent to Gordon Road over by the property yard that is currently in the city. It would bring those parcels in. All of these parcels are owned either by the City of Falls Church proper or the school board. There are a couple of changes to the agreement, basically housekeeping matters that were made, and you have a revised agreement in front of you. This is at page 4, specifically Roman numeral X, or Roman numeral 10, references an unnumbered portion, rather, just a very small triangle of a property, but the key here and the goal here is to make sure we include all properties that need to be brought into the city. And then secondly, Romanet 12, again reaffirms and makes clear that the entire frontage of Haycock Road that fronts on the George Mason property, parcel 94, will be brought within the city. The same changes were made to the draft ordinance that is attached to the agreement. In closing, I want to stress that this is the start of the process. It is not the end of the process. There will be public hearings going forward once we get through the Commission on Local Government to adopt the draft ordinance. With that, I can answer any questions, but again, we did have a lengthy discussion in closed session last week. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions by council members? Mr. Tarter?
If you can answer this in open session, did the number of acres correspond with what you'd expect, or was there some discrepancy when the surveys have come about?
No, the acres correspond with what we expected.
Other council members? And Mr. Foster, this is going before the Commission on Local Government within the Virginia, it's a separate agency within the Virginia government?
Yes, it is an agency of Virginia government. It's under I believe, the Department of Housing and Community Development in Richmond. The reason we are seeking council approval of this resolution this evening is we have a goal of getting in front of that commission in July this summer, and then getting their final recommendation in September. And that will keep us on schedule for the referendum in November, and then subsequent closing if it does pass at referendum in early 2014.
Great, thank you very much. And Mr. Foster, just again for the record and just so you're aware, if any of the documents are going to be going to the Department of Justice, I believe, or to a federal court, my name can't be associated with them, as we've discussed before.
Thank you for the reminder.
All right. Anything else, Council, before we take a vote? Okay, if I can get a motion, and then we'll open it up for public comment.
Mr. Mayor, move to adopt TR 13-13.
If I can get a second.
Second.
That's Mr. Snyder on the second. I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item? Not seeing any. Ms. Bichette, did we receive any written comments on this? I'm going to go ahead and close this item for public comment. If I can have the roll call, please.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalin? Mr. Pepe? Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter? Mayor Brook?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Council, the next item before you is consent.
Mr. Shields, did you have any comments on this, or is it this looks like it's all appointments? So, Ms. Berry?
All appointments.
I'd just like to report from the Appointments Committee that we had the pleasure of meeting with the candidates, the new candidate for the Retirement Board, and then the reappointments, Mr. Little, Mr. Szymanski, and Mr. Donaldson. And once again, we're grateful for their service and their willingness to continue to serve the city. The other piece, the Board of Equalization candidates, we had asked to meet with all of these candidates. We realized that the Appointments Committee does not have any power of recommendation, but that these names are forwarded to Arlington County Circuit Court. We regret that we were not able to meet with Mr. LeBlanc or Mr. Handley, but we wanted to move this forward in an expeditious manner, and we decided that if our schedules couldn't collide, that it was probably more prudent for us to simply to move it forward. So that's the decision of the committee.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the committee? If I can get a comment, please.
Thank you. I do know, I've worked with Mr. Little. I think he's very good. I think he'll be glad that he's re-upped. And I'm particularly pleased to see the new candidate, Ms. Hanson, as a professional actuary. This is a very important component. It's not surprising, but most people don't understand how complex pension calculations are and the importance of having people who are familiar and knowledgeable in that area. So I think this is a great acquisition for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else before we take a vote? If I can have the roll call vote, please.
Need a motion, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. If I can get a motion on the consent.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the consent items.
Thank you. If I can have a second, please. Is Mr. Kalin on the second?
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalin? Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter? Mayor Baruch?
Yes.
Thank you, Council.
And I don't believe we have any other business on the agenda. Any other council member comments? Vice Mayor Snyder?
Just one. I want to thank every member of council. This was, I thought the big issues, the long-term issues were better discussed than in many other prior times. So I really appreciate the work that went into this. Thank you.
Other council member comments? Ms. Berry?
Mr. Mayor, I have been reminded to thank heartily the volunteers from the Employee Environmental Task Force who were picking up trash today around City Hall doing their bit for Earth Day. Thank you very much to all the members of the task force and to Veronica and her husband, who particularly took a leadership role.
Thank you. Other council members?
Mr. Mayor, could I ask
Mr.
a
Duncan?
scheduled question?
Please.
I saw the notice about a training about fair housing next Monday. Is that a formal council? I took that training last year. I'm wondering if there's something different, or is that a formal meeting, or is that you may attend but you don't have to? What is that?
I would encourage council members to attend if you've not had the training before. I think it's very helpful. We often talk about fair housing and in the context of land use planning and things like that, it's good to just go through exactly what is the law, what are the rules, and be refreshed on that. And so I would encourage all council members to attend.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just say, yeah, I agree with the city manager. I took the training. I thought it was very helpful. Get your antenna up about how to speak about many of the things that we do in a way that we should. But if there's no dramatic difference in the training this year from last year, I probably would not be in attendance at that meeting. So I hope that's okay.
Yeah, I, just for the benefit of you, Mr. Duncan, and the other council members, I think there will be some differences between the training you received last year and this year. There'll be more trainers participating. I will be participating from a legal perspective. I was not there at the one a year ago.
Okay.
And we'll have, you know, available particular cases that I think might be helpful to City Council.
All right, well, that's helpful now. Thank you.
Other council members? Mr. Kaler?
That I'd like to have this policy review. They're mentioned on industrial revenue bonds. I'd like that to be part of the work program for the Budget and Finance Committee, please.
Yeah. And I would just ask that the EDA be part of those discussions.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, anything else, council members? If I can get a motion to adjourn, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
That's Ms. Berry on the motion. If I can get a second? Second. It's Mr. Kalin on the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. We're adjourned. Thank you, council.